started. If this is any of your first book club with DSLC, welcome. Well, welcome in any case. But we always start by putting start in the chat because that way the script that I use to edit the videos can find that point and edit the video. And so with that, welcome to the Data Science Learning Club, or Data Science Learning Community Advanced R Book Club, Cohort 10. I'm personally coming back to this book. This was actually the first book club we did in kind of the modern era of the community, back at the beginning of COVID. A bunch of us got together to finally actually read this book, and we read it, I think it was like just before it actually published in print, while he was putting the finishing touches on this edition. So it's been a little bit, and it'll be interesting to go back and read it. What I'm showing right now is the index of our shared slides. The index is at dslc.io/advr advr. You can always find that. It's like the same slug as in the channel name. So it's book club-advr. It's dslc.io/advr. And actually DSLC .video, let me type that, /advr will also take you to all of the videos for this this book club, different cohorts that we've had. All right. And so the first thing I want to do is go through how meetings will work, especially for anybody who hasn't done one of our book clubs before. So the basic idea, and let me pull up my notes. All right. We're going to be reading Advanced R by Hadley Wickham. These slides are available, like I said, at dslc.io/advr. And we do follow the Data Science Learning Community Code of Conduct, which you should have seen as you joined, which basically boils down to just, don't be a jerk. If you do have any issues, you can message me, John the Geek on Slack, or Tan Ho or Lydia Gibson. We are the kind of governing council for the DSLC. So the general format of these meetings is someone will sign up on that spreadsheet, which you might have seen fly by in my shared tabs. Someone signs up to lead the discussion. Now, you don't have to and kind of shouldn't be an expert in order to sign up. The point is that you're going to read the material, learn the material, and then kind of lead the discussion of that material. It's definitely the best way to learn something. So if there's something you're really interested in getting to understand better, I recommend signing up for that chapter. The link is in the chat, and it's also shared in our Slack channel. And I'm going to gather these 3 links together so that we can keep resharing them if we need to. For anybody else who has joined since I shared them, I think it'll actually let you see the old messages in Zoom now, but either way. Generally, what we try to do is we have these shared slides. I'm going to talk about those a little bit more in a second. And it's just kind of like the slides are meant to be a reminder of what was in the chapter, to prompt us to discuss anything that we found that was confusing. If someone didn't get a chance to complete the chapter, hopefully we can give them a little bit of a leg up on catching up on what it was. Sometimes we might do a live demo. I think that's a fine line to walk, that you're not, like, it's hard to read code on someone else's screen when they present. So, think about what you want to do there, but chances are we'll do some live demos. And so these slide decks are Quarto decks now. A few of them are Quarto, most of them are still Markdown, and they're being converted actively. This is kind of a new format for the book clubs. I'm trying to encourage people to make things that are more like slides and less like a book. And so hopefully this will help push in that direction. There is info in these slides that again shared at that dslc.io/advr about how to edit the slides and how to participate. When you have a chapter, I highly recommend converting the existing RMD to a QMD. That's the new Quarto format. For the most part, you can leave it as is, but like I said, a lot of the old ones are more like a book than like a slide. And so you'll see when you load one of the old chapters that are currently RMDs, they look messed up because they aren't laid out like slides, basically. And all of these meetings will be recorded and they'll be available usually like the morning after the meeting. They'll be available at the Data Science Learning Community YouTube channel at dslc.video. All right. Oh, and as I'm going through, if you have any questions, I might not see it if you raise your hand, so speak up. I also can see the chat on my screen here, so if you don't want to speak up, don't want your voice to appear on in the meeting, like ideally, I'd prefer if you do. We should probably get used to talking to each other, but I'm someone who tends to talk more in chat in meetings, so I totally respect that if that's where you want to, or how you want to go with it. On a related note, camera on is nice for helping me see whether people are confused or not, but I totally understand if you aren't comfortable with camera on, that's fine. I am trying to lay out my windows so I can see a few of the faces of the people who do have camera on, though. Let's see. All right. Oops, sorry. Still rearranging my windows a little bit. So yeah, our goal is to go through a chapter every week. Most of the clubs have been able to do that with this book. It's actually laid out like, Hadley knows what he's doing as far as teaching goes, and so it's laid out for basically an hour. And it works pretty perfectly for one chapter a week. It is okay if we hit a chapter that's a little bit much to split it, and possibly we'll be combining chapters. The only ones I can think of are like the intro to object-oriented programming. It's a bit short. That's about it, but we'll see as we go. If anything, like if you are preparing to present for a week and you're like, this is going to take me like 10 minutes, go ahead and prepare the next one as well. The GitHub link is, you can click from dslc.io/advr and get the GitHub. Okay. And yeah, I really want to go push for us to meet pretty much every week. The schedule has a couple of breaks in it, like for Thanksgiving here in the US, but more importantly for Spring Forward, when the US for fallback rather, when the US goes into leaves daylight savings time a week before Europe does. We just shut everything down at DSLC for that because otherwise the meetings are a mess and 2 meetings are trying to happen at the same time, or more than 2 sometimes, because we have people all over the world. We just shut down for that week. And so other than that, right around Christmas, things like that, other than that, we're going to try to meet every week. And if we stay on schedule, I think we are currently scheduled to finish 1 or 2 weeks before the spring daylight savings change. And I would like us to do that. I don't want to go into that one is longer. It's like a 3-week break. And it's harder to kind of stay on track. So let's try to finish up before that. If you are scheduled to present and then you can't, try to let us know as soon as you can. I'm going to try to keep up. And so if the presenter can't show up, I'll try to cover it. And yeah, so March 8th is kind of our deadline for trying to finish. And thank you for sharing the GitHub. All right. You will see in pretty much all of the decks for Data Science Learning Community, we have learning objectives at the start of the deck. Um, this is in a former life, I worked in educational publishing, and learning objectives are a big thing. Students who study with learning objectives in mind do better. Just like that's the easiest thing you can do to learn better is think about what are you going to learn before you learn it. And so with that in mind, you'll see in the slide decks, there's like some bullet points right up front. Um, I find it's helpful to think about like the sentence after today's session, you will be able to, and then that's what the bullets are trying to fill in. And really roughly, it'll come out to like those major headings in the book. Uh, those are laid out like learning objectives usually. I just wanted to point that out because as we're editing the slides, try to make it, useful for us to learn from. All right, and now, if you're comfortable, I'd love to hear from everyone. We'll just go around of who are you, where you're calling in from. Feel free to skip any of these questions. How long have you been using R? How did you get started in R? If you, depending where you are in your journey, if you want to share that. And what are you most looking forward to during the club? And Olivier is at the top left for me, so I'm gonna point at you. And oh, actually, I guess I should go first. Sorry, I'm Jon. I'm Jon Harmon. I run the data science learning community. I've done that for the last like 7 years now, I think. I'm calling in from Austin, Texas, and I've been using R for coming up right around 10 years, I think. 9 or 10 years. I got started relatively late. I actually like I was writing things in SQL before R, and R was so much easier versus I know a lot of R users want to learn SQL to anyway, I came in backwards. Um, and my intro to R was because I had been doing a lot of stuff with data at my company and got the title data scientist before I knew what the heck that meant. And so I had to kind of go back and figure out, okay, I'm doing this stuff. How can I formalize this and give us a leg up on learning what's going on? Yeah, I was, like I said, I was just doing direct SQL and didn't know what the heck I was doing. Made some things in Photoshop that would be relatively easy in ggplot2 these days, back in the day. So that was all fun. And I'm looking forward, I think the chapters towards the end are the big ones that I want to really dig into, the debugging and refactoring in other languages and things like that. But the main thing I'm looking forward to is the little things that I didn't realize that you find when you go all the way through the book and you go, oh, that's how that works. I had this misunderstanding about that. And so I'm looking forward to things like that. And now with that, I'll hand it over to Olivier.
Is it working? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. I'm on a crappy Linux operating system that's a very bad camera, so I never know like if it works. Um, so I'm Olivier, as you can hear, I'm French, but I'm living in North Carolina, USA. How long I have been using R? I don't remember. Too long, but I was a lone user for a long time, just building my crappy script by myself. So I will say like I use professionally R since like 7 or 8 years ago. What was my introduction to R? In fact, it was the blue book, that the new S languages that I still have somewhere here. That was a bad introduction, by the way. I will not recommend anyone to go through that. The other book like we're gonna read are better. What I'm most looking forward to during this club, right now, sadly, I need to focus on Python, so I will just enjoy just doing like nice R syntaxes instead of Python mess. So that's it, and I'm gonna go with Gaby. Nice to meet you again.
Thanks, Olivier. Nice seeing you too again. So everyone, my name is Gabby. I am right now in Guatemala City, Central America. I moved this year because I was living in the US before, and I just moved here. Um, I started using R a little bit over 10 years ago, but I always say like 10. I started using that because I'm an ecologist, and for my work, I needed to learn somewhere where I could just do all these models that we needed to do in order to understand the data that we had, right? Like this camera trap data, etc. That's how I started with. And I immediately fell in love with it. Like it was like I understand what I'm doing. This is the best thing ever. And the other thing that really pulled me in to wanting to learn more about the language and more about data science and all of that is that out of all the communities that I belong to, this is the most welcoming one. And I mean data science, not necessarily, obviously, DSLC is the best thing ever, but in general, the data science community has always been amazing and so welcoming. And if you want to learn something, Twitter, social media, anywhere, they're always like, yeah, look at my blog. I did this blog post a few years ago, and then you can learn from this. So that always made me feel very welcomed. So yeah, like I mentioned, I'm an ecologist. I think I'm not advanced R user, but I am before advanced, I would say. And I've tried to learn this book twice already, but there's always something coming up, and then I never get to read this book. I feel like after reading this book, I can call myself an advanced R user, but there's always packages and other things that I need to learn too. Um, I want to learn the behind the scenes because I know how to do graphs, curate data. I know all of that. I just want to learn how to understand the behind the scenes. And with that, I guess package development is also there, but that's another book club, I suppose. So that's what I'm interested in learning. So yeah, thank you. Oh, I guess I need to say someone else. Okay, let's go with Ella.
Hi everyone, lovely to meet you. I'm Ella. I'm based in Oxford in the UK. Professionally, I'm a senior research software engineer as of a couple of weeks ago, senior. I work at the University of Warwick with Heather Turner, who some of you might have come across in the R world, on a fellowship project with her around sustainability and EDI in the R project, in particular around fostering a larger and more diverse community of contributors to base R. So you might hear me go on a little bit about that when I present on C for R users towards the end of this book club. I see all of you as potential base R contributors, just putting that out there for you. I've been using R for 10 years. I was introduced to it through a master's in applied statistics. We learned R as part of that course, but I really started getting into it a couple of years later with a sort of a joint introduction to the joys of R package development and also the R community. I think, like, honestly, I think Use R 2017 changed my life in terms of sort of like the professional and personal connections there, and just like the love of R and the R community that stemmed from that conference. I have been intending to read this book for a long time. I have had it actually like even on my work list as part of my job of contributing to base R, but I've just never quite got around to it. So I'm really looking forward to the accountability that working in a study group brings, like knowing I'm going to be here most weeks for the next 6 months is really nice, and I'm looking forward to the conversations that we have as part of that, learning from each other. And I will pass to Jacob.
Hello, I'm Jacob Schwan. I'm calling in from Minneapolis, Minnesota in the US. I've been using R for about 10 years now. My introduction to R was the Coursera data science course that Jon Hopkins put together. I was, doing a lot of analysis and work in spreadsheets and hearing about this data science stuff that was better. And I tried some Python first, and that didn't click, and then took that Coursera course and really fell in love with R and the functional style of it. So I'm most looking forward to in this book club the somewhat the accountability as well. I've had this book on my shelf for a couple of years, and when I saw John's Blue Sky post about a new cohort coming, I was like, okay, here's my excuse to make sure I get it in and read the chapters and have some good discussions. I'm also looking forward to meeting all of you and getting used to discussing more. I've kind of been I call myself a little bit of a lurker in the data science community, a lot of reading, maybe not as much sharing or putting myself out there. So I'm looking forward to having to do more of that and get to know more people in this community. And with that, I think we'll pass it to Sally.
Sounds good. Hi. Yeah, so I'm Sally. I'm calling in from Washington, D.C. in the United States. How long have I been using R? I think like pretty much everyone so far. It's coming up on a good decade here, and my introduction to doing that was having to teach it to myself after getting to the point in my evolutionary genomics grad school where the data was like simply too big to open in Excel anymore. These like giant tables of like a genetic variation data and other good stuff like that. So it was a lot of self-learning and eventually helped others in my department learn it as well when it became obvious that like all of our data was too gigantic for Excel and stuff like that. And so what I'm most looking forward to in this club is, well, fortunately, you might imagine that being in Washington, D.C., up until recently, I worked for the NIH as part of the government running a bioinformatics training program at the NIH, which sadly was ended when the funding for that was suddenly ended. So I'm actually just really looking forward to giving myself some structure to skill up during this time of fun employment, spending, at least an hour a week with lovely, like-minded data science people, and yeah, just making the best of some of my downtime between jobs at this point. So really excited to stick with it and honestly, yeah, learn what's going on behind the scenes of R as a person who's been using it for data analysis for like 10 years now. All right. Let's see. I have Eamon. You are at the top of my screen.
Thanks, Sally. And way to nail the pronunciation. That can trip some folks up. My name is Eamon. I work in the federal government now, still. I began using R when I was still in grad school a very long time ago. We don't need to talk about the specific length of time. When I left academia and started as a data scientist, I thought I would take R seriously as an actual programming language, though, instead of just like a place where I like fit models and do t-tests. And that was right around the time of the publication of the first edition of Advanced R in 2014. So I read that and I was like, oh, R is actually cool. And I kind of appreciated its quirks and its lispiness. And so I've mostly used R in the time since then, although sometimes I have to do other things depending on the environment I'm working in, which I'm sure is familiar to everyone else. So I like R as a language. I like programming it, and yeah, I'm excited about going through this edition of the book. I don't know the Rlang package at all, so this is sort of an excuse to learn that, and some of the tidy evaluation stuff is like, a little like I've just refused to learn it, and this will give me a chance to finally figure that stuff out. Um, I don't want to mispronounce your name, but I don't want to skip people with hard to pronounce names. So Ritselisitsoe. I know I got that wrong. I'm so sorry. So first of all, how do I pronounce your name? And second of all, do you mind going next?
Oh yeah, no, I'm happy to go next. So the name is Retsidisizwe. I'm not really expecting most people to get it, but it's Retsidisizwe. Yeah, it's a mouthful. Yeah, so my name is Retsidisizwe, and I am calling from Cape Town, South Africa. So I work for a research group based at the University of Cape Town. And I've been using R like properly since 2019, but my intro to it was in like 2015 in my statistics course. But at that time, they were teaching just base R. And I had done a ComSci course where I learned Python. So I really liked Python and I really did not like R. So I kind of just did it to get through the stats course. But then in like 2019, I had to tutor someone and then they were using R, but then they were using like the tidyverse stuff. So then I had to read R for data science. And yeah, after that, I never looked back. And then what am I most looking forward to? So I've actually read the first like 7 chapters of the book. And then I've never really gotten the chance to finish the book. I've gone to like some other chapters like as references when I'm working on stuff. But I've never really got to actually go through the whole book. So I'm looking forward to that and then just engaging with other people. Yeah, so that's me. And next I will go with Nicholas. You're the next person on the thing.
No worries. Yeah, hi, I'm Nick. You can call me Nick. So I am a data scientist at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. I am calling from Buffalo, New York, 30 minutes from Canada. I've been using, it's crazy to think, been using R for about 12, 11 years. And my introduction to R was after my bachelor's in biochemistry. I learned R as a cancer bioinformatician, post-baccalaureate student at the NIH. And that's where I really fell in love with both the R language, but also bioinformatics. I just wanted to become really good at that. What am I most looking forward to? I read this book. Well, I read a few chapters and I skimmed a lot of it because a lot of it went over my head. But in my job now, doubling down on using R as almost like a de facto software engineer, I should really be good at using R, which I think I am. I think I am a better hacker and using a lot of techniques, but I really want to double down on knowing exactly what's being called and how and all that. So I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you. And I want to echo what Gabby said about this being a fantastic, wonderful community. Just like Jacob, I feel more like a lurker, but I'm looking forward to contributing more. Thank you. Next, I nominate Josh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Percy. I'm on the west coast of Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Also a bit of a lurker. This is really the second book club I will have I actually hope to participate in and like plan to. So yeah, also trying to become more of an active contributing member instead of just a lurker. I started using R in 2016 for an undergraduate thesis on like plant roots. So I come from an ecology, a plant ecology background. But it wasn't until a few years ago when I got a job that uses R that like I really started developing more competency in it. And I'd say I'm most looking forward to building intuition in many different sections of this book on things that I use regularly in my job, but like they kind of just work. So I never really question them. So I'd like to get better at knowing why the things I'm trying to use aren't working, which is a constant problem. But yeah, that's me. Next person on the list for me is Logan.
Hi, I'm Logan. I am based in Montana, USA. And I've been using R. Sounds like maybe the shortest amount, like only around 5 years. I my introduction was when I decided to like, I guess, do a career change. So I started taking a stats course, and I think R sold me on having a career in like data analytics and data science because I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to learn, and I didn't learn it with base R. I learned it with like, tidyverse. So I think that's also why it's sold me quickly. And what I'm most looking forward to, first of all, to joining my first book club. I've always been curious about this. And now that I have a little bit of time this fall, I get to like do some more of this stuff. So that's really fun and exciting for me. And also, I didn't have this particular book on my radar, but I have used like a couple specific chapters, namely the tidy evaluation chapter. I had to start maintaining a project with that used a package, and I did not understand tidy evaluation at all. And I was just like so annoyed, and I was like, I have to learn because I have to edit these functions. I just don't know what's going on. So I read it and it helped me a lot. So I was like, I probably should read more of this book so I can actually do more things. So yeah. And I will pass it off to, I believe, let's see, to like go through people that I'm not familiar with. Brian, I think is the other, or Byron. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I think that's the only other person. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Derek
Oh, Derek.
also has not. So
sorry.
But Derek's got his is unmuted, so Derek will go first, and then Byron, if you're comfortable, you'll be going up next, and if not, no problem.
Hi all, my name's Derek Solberger. I teach data science, machine learning, etc. at Princeton University, New Jersey, Eastern United States. Like others have said, I've been using R for more than a decade. Like Jacob, it was the Coursera MOOC that was started by Jeff Leake and Roger Peng and them back in the split apply merge days. But I liked R much more in the tidyverse era because I did learn SQL beforehand. And to this day, my colleagues and I feel that teaching R and tidyverse is the best for new students in data science. I did participate in a previous cohort in this, the one led by Olivier, where I was trying to learn more about arrays and in particular using the pull statement after pipe statements. And this time around, I need to have more mastery about things like copy and paste and data masking. And yeah, that's me. Yeah, we could see Brian's intro.
Byron said that his he can't be mic on, so we made it. We got through everybody. All right, let me get back over to my slides. I do want to pull up this spreadsheet is linked in the Slack channel. I highly recommend coming in here and grabbing a chapter or two. Like I said, it's the best way to learn, and they're filling up, which is awesome to see. So again, if there's something you particularly are interested in understanding better, the best way to understand it is to tell us how it works. So definitely do that. On the site, you might have seen in the channel that I've been tweaking it and making it kind of automatically build, and it like pulls in all the meeting videos now, which is kind of neat. And it also, if there is a slide deck, it'll have it. So, if you go to the page over here on the side, it'll pull up the slide deck and the videos if there are any, if I've done the processing yet.
That's a question.
I think, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just looking at the QMD program section, and I know you said we wanna try to keep the slides as like an actual slide deck. Do we need to change those YAML headers, or will it automatically render it with like Reveal.js or something?
All of them get a shared. There's a meta.yaml or whatever it's called in that folder, so you don't need to put anything in the header. The tricks that we need to do to keep the book rendering nice is when you add a chapter or add a package, you do need to tell the system about that. And so there's a little bit of help on that. The easiest way is if you use this package, you can just say use package, X in the chat there, and that'll set everything else up. But the biggest thing is that most of these chapters are currently these RMDs, and let me pull one up. I know I think this one's not edited. Or did I start to edit it? We will see. And that's not too bad yet, but yeah, you can already see like it's going off the bottom. There's more there that we can't see in this format. And actually a lot of these, it's hard to tell that you can't see it, but there's like so much, there's like pages of data that people put in the slides, and so they're not very slide-like. So all of that will be things to update. But yeah, so chapter 1 I did, and so we will go ahead and go through that one, and that should fill up our time. So let me rearrange things. There we go. All right, so like I said, I like to include learning objectives. So learning objectives, first off, for the entire book, because this chapter goes through kind of what's coming up in the book. Our objectives are to improve our programming skills, develop a deep understanding of our language fundamentals, kind of how it all works under the hood, as a lot of people were saying. Understand what functional programming means. And this was one where I had read it in the book, and then I was laid off a few years ago and started kind of upskilling myself and stumbled on books about functional programming and was like, oh, that's what R is. And it's this advanced programming concept. Huh. And so learning what that is, and that hopefully actually like getting it more than I did the first time through. Understand object-oriented programming, another programming paradigm, and how it's applied in R, the many ways it's applied in R. Understand some metaprogramming while you're developing in R, so how you can use R to write R, which is a weird thing that you can do with R. And then we want to be able to identify what to optimize and how to optimize it within our code. All right. Within this chapter, our learning objectives are to recognize the differences between the first and second edition of this book. I think I cut out a lot of that because we had slides about that, but the second edition came out several years ago. I don't doubt that many people care what the differences are, but if you do, it's in the book. You can go read about that. But we will talk about the overall structure of the book, and most importantly, make sure that you decide whether this book is for you before you commit to 6 months of reading a book. Make sure this is the right book for you to be reading. All right. So a little bit about what's new. His goal was to really cover the stuff that he came to understand after he wrote the first edition. It's funny to watch when Hadley is writing a book because all the packages that are used in the book get a lot better. Often right after the book is finished, he'll have some epiphany about how something should work, and he updates it in the package, and therefore, as happened with this book, something becomes fundamentally not wrong, but harder than it needs to be in the book. So when we get to the tidy evaluation section, literally like the month after this book went to the printer, they invented Embrace, the double bracket thingy that you'll see in some tidy code. So that's not mentioned in this book, but I'm going to point that out when we get to it, because it was something where as soon as he put the book aside, he was like, oh, this is how it should work. So anyway, so we'll see the things that have been improved since the first edition and talk a little bit about what has improved since the second. He wanted to get rid of the coverage of an important topic, so there are some things that were in the first edition that aren't here. Oh well. And then he wanted to make it easier to understand, and I think he did a pretty good job there. There's a lot more diagrams. There's a lot better understanding or explanation of things. And like I said, they wrote the Erlang package kind of while he was writing this book to make everything easier to work with. And yes, we are gonna he cut out the C chapter, but we're gonna bring it back about how you can both speed up your code with C and possibly contribute to base R itself. All right. So he did switch pretty much everything to Erlang in this edition. Now, he also goes into how you would do it in base most of the time, but Erlang is the package that the Tidyverse team wrote in order to make it easier to work on the Tidyverse packages. And so if you learn Erlang, you're learning like the tools that they use for their packages. I do find it super useful, even though a lot of it does kind of just replicate base R things, but it like puts the arguments in a more logical or more pipeable order, the more standardized order. You will find sometimes the base R functions, there will be 2 or 3 functions that are a family, but they're not in the same, because of the history of when and how they were developed, their arguments don't all match up. And so Erlang is to try to make that all go together. And then there's a lot of just a little bit of things like dplyr and tidyr, but I'd say, R for DS is the dplyr tidyr book, ggplot2 book, and this is more the Erlang per book. Let's poke the head over and see if it's nothing important. All right. I don't know if you could hear through my headphones, but someone rings through a bell. That's another thing. All right. So what will we learn? I'm going to go over just briefly what's in here. Hopefully my dogs just stop being crazy. So there are 5 sections. There's foundations, which is 7 chapters. The building blocks of R. I'm sorry, the dogs are going crazy.
Are you talking about my kiddo?
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah, sorry.
So this little fella will probably be on my lap for a fair number of sessions. Do you want to say hi to my friends? No.
No.
This is Ori. He's 3.5.
So yeah, I don't know if the dog's barking was loud through my mic, but it was loud to me and it was very distracting. So they're quieter now. All right. So yeah, we'll go over the foundations of R. That's kind of the building blocks of R. And right from the jump, I find it really interesting that I think like even in that first chapter, there were lots of things where I'm like, oh, that's how it works. Okay. So there's stuff about like memory management and things like that that you probably don't necessarily think of when you're first learning R. And yes, they went back to the door, but they aren't barking, thankfully. But yeah, my dogs, I'll make sure that they show up on camera at some point. The next section is functional programming. Like I said, that is like a programming paradigm that not a lot of languages really focus on it, although more and more languages do, because like Julia is functional focused and Rust has some functional programming paradigms built into it. And so it's becoming more and more popular. And it's the reason that a lot of people who come from the more object-oriented world think R is really weird, is it is set up more functional, but it's really cool once you learn how to like really use it. And that's where the main thing is that functions are objects that can be arguments in other functions and that can be manipulated by other functions. And that makes things really weird in powerful ways. So that's what that section is all about. Next section, object-oriented programming. So there are 5 chapters, but we're actually going to add a 6th chapter. The 5 chapters are about, well, just the basics of object-oriented programming and classes and that kind of thing. And then R has S3 and S4, as well as R6. And then there's another chapter about kind of putting them all together and when to use each type. And we're going to add a week about S7, which is the new kind of in development, ideally replacement for S3 and S4. That's why it's S7. It's S3 and S4 added together. But yeah, we'll talk about those. Then we have 5 chapters about meta programming. That includes the tidy evaluation and ways to generate code with code. Some interesting things in there. And then at the end, there are 4 chapters that he calls techniques, things like debugging, measuring performance, and improving performance. And I didn't put it there, but we're actually expanding that by 2 chapters as well, because we're going to do a chapter on C, so integrating C with R, and and yeah, back to the site. And we're going to do a chapter on integrating Rust with R. And yeah, as Olivia say, it's I don't have the XKCD handy of, you know, someone looks at the list of standards, it's like, what? S3 and S4, why do we have these 2 different things? There should be one that covers every use case. And so now we have S3, S4, and S7, but S7 is really cool. I'm not certain how actively it's being worked on right now, but it is, if you have worked with S3 or S4, it kind of takes the best of both worlds, or at least it tries to. I'm glad they renamed it, because I still like R6 is a different type of object-oriented programming. And so keeping that separate is, I think, good. S7 doesn't really replace R6, but it does replace S3 and S4. But yeah, it definitely is going to be just that now there are 3 systems to learn, plus R6. There's also RC, which is built into base R, that he mentions it and says, don't worry, you don't have to learn that. And so far as I've ever seen, that is pretty much true. There is one object-oriented system in R that seems to have mostly died out. I don't think I've ever seen any code, RC code, in the wild. All right. Got a couple more slides here. So why R? A lot of people talked about the number 1 reason that you should learn R is the diverse and welcoming community. That's kind of why I think I really stuck with R. Used to be Twitter. Now it's somewhat Blue Sky, somewhat LinkedIn, and our Slack community, and some Mastodon. Like, it's scattered, but it's still, when you ask a question about R, you don't tend to get a lot of, you know, well, that's a stupid question kind of answers, or people telling you, well, you shouldn't do that kind of answers. People just like to answer your question, so that's nice. There are lots of packages for things like stats and modeling, machine learning, data visualization, data wrangling. We have R Markdown and Quarto. You know, Quarto does a more sharing the beauty of R Markdown with the rest of the world. You can use Python and JavaScript and some other things with it, but it's a really nice way to do things like put together slide decks. And I see a lot more on Blue Sky right now, I think, but yeah, there's a little bit about Mastodon, Blue Sky. LinkedIn is a different kind of beast. I don't know. There's no great strong community right now, but I think Blue Sky is the one that is starting to coalesce. Mastodon just has like fractured built in. It's fractured by design. So yeah. We have RStudio /Positron, good IDEs. So you know, that's a good reason to use R. But again, Positron makes it also easy to switch between languages. You know, R is used in science, a lot of scientific publishing. You can go read the R code that goes with the paper. And yeah, LinkedIn, it's a special little place. It does have a pretty strong R community. It also has a pretty strong just people trying to sound smart community. So there's that. But yeah, thanks to like Tidy Tuesday and this community and everything, I have a very large following on pretty much all of social media. So, you know, if you are looking for a job search, let me know when I need to like repost something or things like that, because a lot of people do see it on LinkedIn, thankfully. All right, and so functional programming. We're going to talk a little about why functional programming is particularly good for data. The way that R is designed, it's meant to work with data. Metaprogramming is really cool. You can do some really neat things, and then it is relatively easy to connect to C, C++, Rust, Fortran, a few other languages with R. So we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end. There are things that are not great about R. A lot of the code in R is by people who like also code. I think that's probably a lot of us here at least started as and might still be people who also code. And therefore, there are a lot of things that are messy or maybe not the best way to do things, don't necessarily follow best practices, that type of thing. And so, and as he said in the second bullet there, that a lot of the code tends to be just about, can we get the result? Not, is it the best way to get the result? Oh, well, like that's part of what we'll learn is kind of how to spot that and how to deal with that and how to make it better in the next iteration. Another thing is that when you do metaprogramming, where you're like programming on programming, you can get really weird failures that don't make any sense because it actually like comes from something way down the line, or it only happens in certain situations, like when the function's called from a function, it breaks, but if it's called directly, it works fine, things like that. So that's something to watch out for. There are like 30 years of evolution of the language, again, mostly by people who are more in that camp, or at least, people transition into the coder from the kind of scientific user of R. And so there are some inconsistencies, but that's part of what he helps us deal with. And then, so he words this very carefully because R is slow, and it's no, poorly written R is slow. R is not the fastest language, but some of the things that people think that you should replace R with are equal, not faster. If you want R to be faster, you should be writing it in a compiled language like C, not another scripting language like Python. R is equally able to be as fast as something like Python. It's just if it's written poorly, it will run slow. It's actually less and less true. A lot of base R has gotten some improvements that even since this book came out that deal with some of the things that used to happen. But it still can be pretty slow. All right, so who should read the book? If you're an intermediate or higher R programmer and want to really understand R, I think that's mostly where we're all coming from. But he also points out that if you are coming in from other languages and are trying to understand why the heck does it work this way in R? Why is it written this way? There is actual logic behind it. And so this book tries to go into that. Yeah, that is a good point, that because people are using it for science, I think R is pretty obsessive about backwards compatibility. You can find code that is still running that, was written there's probably stuff out there that's still running every day that was written for S, and it will still run in R 4.5.2. So every once in a while there's a breaking change, but those are pretty few and far between. Prerequisites for this is, he says you have to have written lots of code. Like you have to kind of understand what a function is, just how to write basic things. If you're not sure, come along with us and we'll see if we can get you. But if you're struggling, you might want to go over to something like R for Data Science first. We do have books or other book clubs that start every once in a while for the kind of more basic underpinnings. You want to understand the basics of data analysis, although we're not going to be doing a lot of direct data analysis. We're going to be talking about like the code that's used for that. So you'll see that. You do want to be able to install packages from CRAN. So if you don't have a good internet connection or whatever, that you could have trouble with that. And so he has a whole section on what the book is not, but it basically comes down to, it's not R for Data Science, which is the lower level, and it's not, slash the more like techniques of data analysis driven side of things. And it's not you're not going to learn to write R packages, although you're going to learn things that are very useful if you do want to write R packages. But both of these, very useful books. We've had clubs. We have videos if you can't make it into a club. It's possible that like R packages, the first time through this book, when we went through it back in 2020, the next book we did was R packages, and I might do that again. We'll see. That book has changed a lot since the last time I read it with a club, like a lot. Very good book. Jenny Bryan and Hadley put that together, and if you do write R packages, I highly recommend that book. Some techniques that he points out for like how to get better at code is to read source code. F2 in RStudio, or if you're using positron with the RStudio bindings, you can hit F2 on any function name and it will load that function and show you like the definition of that function. That is a great way to understand how code works. You can like trail through it, like hit F2 in a function, you're like, oh, it calls this other function. What's this? And you hit F2 and you go see what that is. Because, you know, they got it to work. You know what the end result is. And you can go see, okay, what are they doing under the hood to make this happen? And he also points out to adopt a scientific mindset. If you don't understand something, or if you're not sure that you understand something, hypothesize about how you think it works and try some experiments. And he's going to talk a little bit about that as we go. I don't know how good he is at remembering to point that out in the book. I can't remember. But you know, the idea of that being, oh, I think this is how this works. So let me call the function with this argument, or let me put in, you know, use it in this context. And I think it's going to, oh, it doesn't do that. Okay. Well, what doesn't it do that? What is actually happening? You know, iterate that way. All right. And then, okay, yeah, this is the last slide I have today, which is good timing. We have the structure and interpretation of computer programs. We'll just, all three of these books, we have links in the slides. I think at least the first two are nice and like legal to use. And this one has a link to an ebook and couldn't find a legal version of it free online. But you know, you can search around and see what you see. But these two seemed to be actually like from the publisher, so safe and good to use. Yeah, the structure and interpretation in computer programs is another one that might be on my list. It's more about like how computers work, not how R works. That's things like this.